Harry, you know, is very difficult. Let's not forget that. A lot of people were talking about his recent live stream, in which, of course, he revealed that he came from a broken home, openly admitted that he'd taken drugs, and all other sort of manner of fact things. I mean, what a shambles he's become, you know, when you think about it. I mean, why would you want to sit down with this guy who looks a bit like a quack, let's not forget, nobody's ever really heard of? But the bottom line is his credentials are, shall we say at best, loose. Seemingly, though, Prince Harry put a lot of faith in him. But the bottom line was, how real was that live stream with Harry revealing all? And there was simply one question that had to be asked and has to be asked in every single interview that Prince Harry does. As ever, let me explain. Hi, good morning. Neil Sean here. Nice to see you. Thank you as ever for joining me today. Hope you're all keeping well. And you know, I love the fact that we're sharing our favourite food bits. We kicked off again with the pineapple chunks. And one thing I wanted to share with you over here, because we're all in a cost of living crisis, aren't we? And one of my favourite meals, which won't come as a surprise, is bangers and mash. Sausage and mash, you know, as we call it over here. Or bangers and mash, should I say. It's the opposite way. Now, gravy. Yes. Gravy is a big thing here in the north of England. But do you do granules, or do you make your own gravy, or do you get cubes? Now, I've got to be honest, at times I use a lot of granules because it's just speed, isn't it? But there's nothing nicer than rich, fresh gravy poured over succulent sausages alongside fluffy potato mash, a few garden peas, and maybe even a few fried onions. I know, how unhealthy is all of that? Is that your type of meal? You can see why nobody wants to come out for dinner with me, can't you? These are the sort of foods that sustain us up here in the north of England, you know, absolutely. Back as ever to your breaking roll story of the day. Now, what's interesting here, as we now see with Prince Harry, you know, he's willing to sit down with anybody, isn't he, you know, and talk about his life at length, however good or bad. I mean, what a rambling affair that live stream was. It was an advertorial, let's not forget. It's not Harry revealing all. He's been paid by Penguin Random House to come up with some more guff that we're supposed to be interested in. But we didn't really learn anything more, did we? But there is obviously a problem with Harry, because seemingly he wants to throw missiles still at the British monarchy, including his father. I mean, some really cruel things that he was saying directed at the king, his majesty the king, should I point out. A lot of people were rather disgusted with Harry's behaviour over here. Of course, it won't bother Harry because, as we've told you before, he has to rake in the money. It's as simple as that. No sign of Meghan, though, is there? But Meghan's presence is everywhere, isn't she? She's a bit like Casper, the unfriendly ghost, you might say. You can't escape her. Maybe a little like Morticia Adams from the Addams family. At some point, she has to be mentioned. She who must be obeyed. And here is the deal, you see, because according to a very good source, and as ever we have to say allegedly, whoever interviews Harry has to bring Meghan into the equation. And on this particular instance, of course, he referenced the fact that she was the person that opened a brand new door for him, showed him there could be another life, everything in positive form. You never hear Harry say, I had any misgivings, or I was unsure about marriage, or I wasn't quite sure whether we could make it, etc., her entering into the bigger family. She's always painted as the positive force. Now, let me tell you two things. All of those questions are thoroughly rehearsed. Even the diagnosis from the doctor was already, agreed off camera. There were no revelations. The only thing that Harry was very concerned about was how sincere he looked on camera when speaking about his wife. And the bottom line is, if Harry doesn't get that right, then it doesn't matter exactly how much therapy he has. When he gets home, things could be rather tricky. And I'm not just jesting there. A very good source tells me that Harry, as I say, has to include Meghan in every single interview, but as ever, it has to be in a simply glowing reference. Have you noted, though, it's never reciprocated back when Meghan's interviewed. It's always rather demeaning in her side of the story. Totally different version of events. As ever, I'd love to know what you think to this particular breaking story in the comments below.